Hello, everyone. Welcome to EG Innovation session at Citrix Converge 2020. I am Bala Vaidhinathan, CTO at EG Innovations. I'm here to talk to you guys about enhancing employee productivity through improving user experience. In the past few months, the work from home landscape has dramatically expanded. It is now including a lot of people who have never worked from home before. And this has introduced a lot of new, interesting challenges. One of those is how do we keep them productive, keeping the productivity levels high. And the most important factor when it comes to keeping the productivity high is making sure that user experience is optimal. We will talk about that in this session today and how you guys can help. So the spotlight here is going to be on user experience. So we'll talk about what is user experience monitoring? How do you measure it in Citrix? What are the different aspects of it? And how do you keep it optimal? When does a user have poor user experience? And then we'll also talk about end-to-end Citrix visibility. Now, this is a key factor in making sure you have total control over what is going on within a user session and how the user is experiencing the session that is being delivered to them. So we'll talk about some of the tips and techniques that EG uses to track end-to-end user experience and some of the tips and techniques that we use to improve those too. And then last but not least, we'll talk about the new EG REST API for creating some microapps for you guys. This REST API exposes all the analytics and the key metrics that we have around user experience and around end-to-end performance monitoring when it comes to Citrix. And my goal here is to leave the development community with some interesting ideas, expose this to you guys and say, hey, you guys can come up with some nice micro apps that will help our end user community get better user experience, and then through that, get better productivity. A little bit about EG. We've been a Citrix partner for close to 20 years. Our solution is purpose-built for Citrix based on the feedback that we've gotten from various Citrix customers across the years. So it is purposefully built based on the feedback and the requirements that Citrix customers have had. So no wonder some of the largest Citrix implementations in the world use EG to manage their environment. We have customers across 6 continents. So we are a global organization. We specialize in doing end-to-end performance management across infrastructure, across application, and across unified monitoring space. Now, we are a global technology partner for Citrix, and we've also been the exclusive monitoring solution for Citrix Synergy and Citrix Summit for the past 6 years when these events were actually held in physical locations. Seems a long time ago. But yeah, these events had huge infrastructures that was there to service the audience. People who attended these events would use these infrastructures, use these different services from Citrix, and EG was monitoring them. And of course, we are Citrix Ready certified across the entire Citrix stack. And last but not least, Citrix is an EG customer. They're using EG to monitor their global technology showcase platform. Yeah, let's get into user experience. What is user experience? It is not just latency. It is not just logon metrics. It is not just application launch time. And it is not just input latency. It is all of these things and more. And the right way to do this is using a combination of synthetic monitoring and real user monitoring, and understanding the fact that user experience is composite. It is not a one single metric. It's a composite metric that involves all these different metrics that overall define how the user experiences your service. Now, if it logs on fast, but the launching of applications is pretty slow, then they're not having a good experience. Same way, if launching applications is fast, but the application's consuming a lot of resource, so they really can't do much with it, again, it's not going to be a great user experience. So across the board, all of these metrics have to be perfect. And that's why we consider user experience as a composite metric. And we'll talk about how EG looks at user experience from various different perspectives and how we measure some of the tips and tricks that we use to make sure that we track what's going on with the user session and how the user is experiencing the service. Now, so here are some of the details, right? When it comes to storefront, it's the first entry point. Is the AD authentication happening there, application enumeration happening there, and the actual log on, is the profile loading properly? How long does the GPU processing take? The applications, are they launching successfully, and how long do they take to launch? Once it's launched, what is the input delay from the user keyboard to what's going on in their screen? And are there applications that are consuming a lot of CPU, a lot of memory, and are they impacting other applications? Are there applications inside a Zen app or a Zen desktop environment that is consuming so much resources that it is impacting other users who are trying to consume resources on the same system? So all of this needs to be looked at. So without talking about this even more using slides, let me show you guys how EG does it by using a demo. Okay. You're looking at a demo system. These metrics are real and these metrics are live. And this is a cloud system that we have in which we've created a demo type scenario. So you can see exactly how we can monitor and track these metrics. Now, in this example, we are looking at a logon simulation. So this simulation comes from an external entity, goes through the web URL, and then launches a particular application. So desktop, help desk, Outlook, Edit Plus, these are the applications that are being launched, and the entire cycle is being tracked. In this case, you can see there are a couple of simulations that have issues in them, that are showing issues. That means these simulations are not working and they're detecting issues. Anytime it's not green, that means it's an issue. It's yellow, low priority, orange, medium priority, and red is critical priority. So let's drill down in here to see what's going on. And this is an overview of how this simulation is working. So you can see client processing time is half a second, 14.5 seconds for storefront web URL access. Authentication took about 8 seconds, enumeration. So you can see that overall application desktop launch took 77 seconds. That's where most of the time was spent in this simulation. So this is where the real slowdown is. Now, why is simulation important? Because it consistently can check basic functionality from different parts of the globe, different parts of your organization, and make sure 24/7 these things are working. And you're able to catch problems with simulation before real users start experiencing them. So if they made a change, typically a problem starts happening when you make a change. Something goes in unexpectedly or unintended consequences, something else changes, and that causes issue. So I'm looking at another example here. This is for Outlook, and you can see in this scenario, the problem was with authentication. That took 45 seconds. So overall total simulation time was about 70 seconds, out of which 45 seconds was for authentication. So this will catch problems that happen when you apply a patch before users start seeing them. And it also gives you, it doesn't just stop with logging in, it also launches the application, make sure that is also successful. And we have the ability to go beyond that also when it comes to simulation. Now that we've looked at simulation, it's also important to look at real user monitoring. And this is a snapshot of how real user monitoring looks like. This is a small environment. There are maybe about 20 users or so in this environment. And this is something that help desk folks from our customers love, because it gives them a quick overview of all the users that are currently logged into the system. and it gives them performance of those users and orders them based on whichever order you want. But typically, it shows the problematic users or users experiencing problems up front. So in this scenario, John, Kevin, Scott, Keith, all these guys are having issues. Let's drill down into John. Now, actually, one thing I wanted to show you guys before we got here is you can see from a quick snapshot right here that HTX latency is high for John. Kevin also HTX latency is high, but network latency is high for John. So that would explain why his HTX latency was high. But network latency is pretty optimal for Kevin, but his HTX latency is still high. So we can figure out why that is happening as we drill in. But this gives you a quick snapshot, and help desk can look at this and say which users are having a problem. When a call comes in, they're able to relate to what's going on, quickly find what's going on before escalating, or most of the calls get resolved at the help desk level without getting escalated. So let's say John is calling and saying, I have an issue, everything is slow. You can clearly see his network latency is poor, but let's drill down into his session and see what is going on. So you can see network latency is sure. This is the session topology for this particular user. You can see the user here going through this NetScaler, this storefront, and logging in through this broker. And this is where the session resides. And these are the applications he's running. This is the session info for that particular user. So you know where this user is coming from. You have a breakdown for logon information. So imagine all of this at the fingertip of the help desk. So they will know exactly what is going on. Alerts that are happening on the servers that these users are on. Session startup, breakup time, CPU consumption, memory consumption, all the key statistics are here. Now, in this scenario, the most key statistic is network latency is low. The connection that the user is using to connect into the Citrix environment is poor. So that is causing the HTX latency to be bad. So you can see connection strength is poor, and that is the problem here. So you get resolved in one call. Basically, that person is using a poor internet connection. Now, let's drill into that server and see what else is going on. So that topology map that you see that is auto-generated. So imagine this useful information. If we are able to convey some of this information in a micro app right next to the user session, so they can check that app and see what is going on before they call the help desk. And that is where we are eventually going with this. Now, Citrix users in a session, so you can see John. So these are some of the metrics that we're collecting to track user experience. So CPU usage, memory usage, handles, IO, input delay for user session, application launches, session startup data duration. And you can see the screen refresh latency is bad. Client network latency is bad. They are using a poor connection. Okay, but we are also collecting input bandwidth, output bandwidth, printer bandwidth, HTX media stream for flash data. All of these metrics are there. So how many sessions does this user have? Total time in the sessions, total idle time, active time. Now, idle time is also an important metric that has become very popular in pandemic times because, like I was suggesting earlier, most of the people who are working from home, the expanded workforce that is working from home now are people who've never worked from home before, and they're finding it challenging to be focused on the task because it's a completely different environment for them. And whenever there is a latency, whenever they click on something and it doesn't come up right away, it enables the distraction. So they wait on it and then they get distracted and do something else, and then they don't come back on the task because things were slow, and then they're off, distracted, doing something else now. So people wanted to focus on idle time and make sure that the idle time obviously is low, and you can get those statistics here. So let's look at startup details. Keith has problems with his startup. So group policy processing duration is high. That is the problem with this overall startup. And then you can drill down into that and you will get specifics of why it was high. So group policy drive mapping was slow. That was the issue. Now, this again gives you a different perspective of tracking real user transaction. So this was particular to this particular user. specific to this particular user. So it could only be found if you are monitoring this particular user and their logon and what is going on within their logon. And you can get a specific snapshot of this logon. So you can see overall 48 seconds login time, 41 seconds interaction, and then that is mainly because of group policy processing. And then going further, you can look at app layering details. You can look at receiver details. You can look at, okay, there are a ton of metrics here. This is to just give you an insight into the different kinds of metrics that are available and analytics that are available. And you guys can pick and choose which one you want to showcase in your micro app. So in this example, I'm talking about browsers being used. And this is a big requirement from a lot of our customers. They wanted to understand if people are using browsers, what are they doing within their browsers? And here you see an example. So we're looking inside the browser session. So we track that this user is running a single browser session, and you're going to see details of that browser session here. So you can see this user was using PayPal and eBay. So in a lot of cases, you get to see if people are using YouTube or stuff that they were not supposed to be doing, or in a lot of other cases, most of the customer applications, say, are in browser-based environments, and you can see based on the URLs what type of applications that they were running and which ones were giving them problems. So EDT performance is tracked too. So all user-related statistics are tracked. So you get a comprehensive picture of what is going on within the user session, and you can, based on that, determine if the user is having a proper experience or not. Now with that, let me get back into the slide deck. So that's one aspect of it. So we saw what user experience was. We saw what are the different things that we need to monitor and track to really manage user experience. We saw that user experience was not a single metric, but it's a composite metric, and all different ways of monitoring, synthetic, real user monitoring, and then collecting these different stats to establish the user experience status. Now, the other side of looking at this coin is looking at it from end to end. So if the individual user has problems, by looking at user experience, you'll be able to track what is going on for that particular user. Is it because of bandwidth? Is it because of network latency? Is it because of application? Is it because of authentication? But if there is a system-wide problem where multiple users are being affected, if you go individual user by individual user, it's a long way around to identifying that problem. But if you have end-to-end visibility across all Citrix tiers and all Citrix supporting infrastructure, then you are able to apply analytics on top and be able to get to the root cause of a problem quickly. That means you will be preventing a major issue from happening if you are looking at the right thing and monitoring it end to end. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that, but let's talk about Citrix. Citrix has gone from being a simple technology to now a huge platform that enriches the users with a variety of different applications and services a lot of different use cases. But at the same time, it now comes with a lot of different tools and stuff that you have to manage that needs to be taken care of by the administrators. So it's not just enough if you're looking at XenApp or just Zen Desktop. You need to look at the hypervisor, you need to look at Citrix Cloud, you need to look at virtual apps, virtual desktop, storefront, ADC, you need to look at app layering, you need to look at WEM, session recording, so on and on and on. So these are some of the details. So in user experience, we just went through logon time breakdown, profile load time, application launch time, and these are some of the specifics that you can look at and say, in a particular environment, what could be important? And that could be something that comes out of your micro apps. So ICA virtual channel, bandwidth speed, line speed, audio bandwidth, video bandwidth, user sessions, when disconnects happen, idle time in session, top users by session duration. User application activity includes top application by CPU memory, browser URLs accessed by users, Citrix workspace components. You've got ADC, WEM, provisioning, app layering. Citrix Cloud is there, Citrix endpoint management, delivery controller, supporting infrastructure. Now, this is a big piece. Virtualization platform, your SQL Server, storage, and not just this, different cloud platforms and cloud infrastructures and mixed environments. and even more so supporting applications or applications that run on top of Citrix. In effect, if you really look at it, Citrix is something that delivers an interface. It delivers a workspace to our clients. And within that workspace, people use different applications, different productivity applications, different business applications to get their job done. And sometimes the workspace is fine, but the productivity applications are having issues. And more often than not, the complaints come to the Citrix team. So it'll be better if we are able to track what is going on in some of these applications and in these infrastructures and make it all part of the overall end-to-end monitoring. So let's look at an example of how that works. Okay, so I was talking to you guys about user experience and user monitoring. I want to show one more quick example of this, and then we'll look at end-to-end monitoring. So we looked at a user who was having latency because they had a poor network connection. In this scenario, there is another user called Kevin whose latency is bad, but his network latency is quite respectable. So what is causing this problem? So let's track down and see if any other metrics are misbehaving. And there you go. Printer bandwidth input, printer bandwidth output is high. That means this person is printing a huge document that is slowing down the bandwidth that is available, and that is causing the latency for this session. So you can see a couple of examples of same problem, but happening because of different reasons. And that's why it's important to look at user experience from all these metrics perspective. Now, with that said, I was talking about end-to-end monitoring before we jumped into this. So we go back to home and we'll look at it from a service perspective, Citrix Cloud and Partner Access. Let me go into Partner Access. So as soon as I go into the service, this is a Citrix delivery environment. It's called Partner Access. It has a bunch of users, and it is being monitored here through simulation to begin with. And you can see login is fine. Accessing applications is slow. Browsing open items is fine. Updating items is slow. Checkout items, logout is fine. So overall response time for this transaction flow, couple of items are slow. So why are they slow? Okay. So we can look at full session simulations, actual real users in here. But let's look at topology because this flows into the end-to-end piece. All right, here is the topology. So you can see this is an illustration of, it's a logical representation of all the different elements that are involved in delivering this end-to-end service to the end user. And EG is monitoring all of them. And they are in different states. If it's green, that means it's good. So you've got PBS here, you've got Profile Server here, you've got Zen Desktop, you've got Zen App, you've got Java applications that are running on Zen App, VMware vCenter, Citrix Storefront. So for all this, you could see how they are connected with each other. The arrows indicate, and some of these elements could be in-house, some of these elements could be in the cloud, but this is a representation of everything that is involved in delivering this service. And you can see in this representation, it's very clear to you where the health status of different elements are. So we saw that there was some issue with transactions on this particular environment. And then you can see some low priority alerts. And as I was saying, the darker the shade, the more severe the problem is. So this seems to be having a medium priority alert. Let's drill down and see. So that Zen App server actually is part of a ESX host that is having a critical issue. So my end-to-end performance management has taken me into the path where I'm finding a critical issue. Now we are looking at the layer model for that ESX, and you can see there are different levels of issues here. But the most critical one seems to be at the top layer here, inside view of VMs. That is, essentially, we are looking at individual VMs that are there within that particular ESX host. And this particular VM, BDC Core 02, seems to be having the critical issue. Now, this is not even part of the Citrix service delivery, but it is impacting the Citrix service delivery. So let's drill down into that, see what is going on there. There we are. So you can see that there is high amount of CPU consumed by this VM that could be impacting the resource available in the entire host, and that could be impacting other elements that are running, like the Citrix Zen App server here. So somebody's running backup, It's taking up a lot of CPU, and that is choking the entire downstream applications that are running on top of the ESX host. Now, this is the benefit of doing end-to-end performance management. And in addition to that, EG has correlation. EG has patented correlation analytics that helps us identify this automatically. So here is an example of that. When I look at the alarms that are currently in this system, I am able to see that this virtualization alert is the top alert that is critical, that is in this environment. So I can see right away that here is the problem, this is what I need to address. And you can get this alert from your micro app, and you can decide to show it on the client side as appropriate. But this is a technique where you're looking at the entire environment end to end and proactively identifying issues so you can prevent this, you can stop this backup now and prevent a downstream event that could have caused outage for multiple Citrix sessions. A couple of other screens I wanted to walk through. Let's look at the virtual app screen. So here is an example. Let's look at Citrix Cloud dashboards. This is a different dashboard for a different service. You can see a quick overview of all the different sessions that are coming into this environment, 12 sessions, 7 unique users, 10 alerts that are happening here, log on time, overall application launch time across this entire environment. So you can look at the environment as a service, and this our customers love. So they can look at the entire service in one snapshot. And this brings out analytics. So you can say that the entire service has 12 sessions, 7 users. This is recent log on time, application launch. You can see the user from UK is having a problem, whereas users from US and South America are not having issues. And then there are multiple different things that you can break it down into. You can look at user experience, delivery groups, sessions from an application perspective. But for this demo, for this sneak peek, I wanted to give you guys an insight into our analytics, insight into our end-to-end performance management, and how that can provide you information that will help you keep the user experience optimal. So with that, let me go back to my slides. So I was talking about how all these different elements, all these different applications are part of the overall user experience. You have to monitor these, and you have to look at it from an end-to-end perspective so you can identify any potential problems in some of these applications impacting your user experience. And last but not least, analytics, right? Analytics, not just from real-time monitoring, real-time analytics, but also from a reporting standpoint, like historical log-on trends, track trends of application launch time, track slow versus fast launches, application launch duration, HTX latency overall, top users by average HTX latency, a lot of different statistics that you can get out of this, including capacity management statistics. So there are a lot of analytics data in there that's for you guys to play with. So overall, to quickly summarize, how does EG Enterprise help Citrix customers? We measure all aspects of Citrix user experience, like I was talking about earlier. That is most important and most critical to make sure that your Citrix service delivery is successful and users are being productive. And monitoring every layer, every tier for end-to-end visibility, that also gives you the ability to do root cause analysis and right sizing for optimization and analytics. This is what EG brings to the table. So these are all the metrics that have in place. And we also talked about how you need to focus on user experience. Now comes to REST API piece. So in the latest release of EG, we've released the REST API for orchestration and analytics integration. So what can you do with our REST API? You can track and retrieve alarms raised in the environment. You can get specific metrics. You can get health of specific elements, specific users or servers in the environment. Commands can be executed. So there is a lot of things that you can do with it. And it gives developers the ability to integrate into our software and make use of these powerful metrics to perform actions on their side to provide information to the end users. So prerequisites for the REST API are API consumer should have connectivity with the EG Manager, obviously, valid user account, and a valid password. So it's a very straightforward REST API. So you can connect using HTTP post from any REST client. The URL of the EG manager can be accessed. And once it is authenticated, it can issue commands for configuration, administration, and to collect performance and analytics from the manager. In this scenario, we are mainly focusing on collecting performance and analytics, but you can also do administration and configuration. So this is overall, this is how we've split the REST API right now. So there is orchestration and administration where you can manage the environment. But more importantly, for this conversation, we're talking about analytics. So you can get specific metrics. You can get alarm count. You can get live measures. You can get historical measures, top 10 measures, infrastructure health, and all the different metrics that I was showing you earlier in the demo. You can get those metrics using the REST API. And then there is, again, another meta information, config information that you can get. So I wanted to show you guys a couple of examples of how this is. Okay, so this is using Postman. So get the get alarms count, user, password, and then you get the response. And then you parse through the response. It's in JSON format. It should be pretty straightforward for you guys. So the same goes with curl. So you can use curl. You can load up. You can see the parameters there. You can load it up. And once you send the command out, you will get the response that you can parse and get the details out of. Here is another example. You're getting user profiles now. Again, you can get, you can browse through the body of the response and you can get exactly the metric that you want. In this case, we are highlighting, you can also get state, whether the user profile size is large, what is the current profile size, number of files in the user's profile. All these details is available. You can parse through and collect for particular users. So you can provide general commands where you can get information across the board for multiple users, or you can provide specific commands to get information for specific users. So obviously documentation for all of this is available on our website. I'll put up a link in there in a couple of minutes. It's in one of the slides further below. So this is JSON, same example. So it is now you are able to see the different metrics to collect the user profile. If the user profile size is large and the status no. So user profile size is good. Now this is using curl, the same example you saw previously using Postman. So what does this enable you to do? It gives you the ability to automate admin activities, extract and analyze performance metrics, integration with other management portals, integration and consolidation with asset configuration systems. But for this particular scenario, microapps, creation of microapps to provide user experience stats. And this is where we'd like you to go with this. Because we believe that if the users are able to see what the problems they have, if they are having problems, if they can click on a microapp in their session and it tells them, hey, it's slow. Hey, you've got your printer bandwidth is choking. Hey, your CPU is too high because of this application. Those things are going to help users address their problems at their end, even before they reach to help desk. Right? Help users. These are some of the thoughts we are having, and this is the direction in which we are going, and we are believing that the developer community will work with us on this and take this up, and this is something that is going to be productive and useful for all of our Citrix end users and customers. So help users check their own network latency, any metric for that matter, right? And just imagine a scenario where the user session is not working as well as they expect it to. Then you just go click on a micro app and it gives them 4 or 5 key statistics that they need to know about their particular session. And that tells them whether they are having a localized problem, whether this is a problem that they can address, or do they have to call help desk. I think that'll be a big step in improving users' experience and making them productive. And there's a link for the documentation. www.eginnovations.com, documentation/REST-API. Okay, so for Citrix, We are monitoring workspaces, user experience. Obviously, we looked at proactively us alerting on problems, and we want to work with the developer community. We want to expose these metrics and get the developer communities also to add value to the overall environment, right? Overall ecosystem. So we provide a single pane of glass monitoring for this entire Citrix workspace, on-prem, cloud, hybrid, from end to end. And our goal is to make sure that the performance of Citrix infrastructure is ideal and the user experience is optimal, and thus enabling digital transformation, especially in these pandemic times when a lot of people who've never worked from home are starting to work from home. They need perfect user experience, and that once we have the capability and the ability to deliver that, and we consistently deliver that, that will make us successful. And that pretty much brings me to the conclusion. So if you guys have any questions, I think there is a Slack channel, and I'm sure by now you guys would know pretty much how it works. And you can also reach out to me. My contact information is up in the title slide. And if you guys are interested, you can try out our Express Cloud software. Go to eginnovations.com/cloud, and you can play with it. You can collect statistics and use that REST API in your environment and build your own microapps. So, well, happy coding, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.